corporate leaders to encourage a substantive exchange of ideas and get the minds to give it direction and also bring about solution. The series will center on the holistic perspective of urbanization in India. I'm delighted to share a glimpse about the series.
India is on the brink of a transformative urban evolution. With only 31% of the population residing in cities, according to the 2011 census, the need for focused urban development to unlock India's full potential is undeniable. The World Bank predicts over 600 million urban residents by 2036. But without proper governance, this surge could strain infrastructure, worsen climate issues, and affect city living. To achieve the ambitious goal of cities contributing 75% of India's GDP by 2030, effective governance is crucial to foster innovation, entrepreneurship, and job creation. India requires $840 billion by 2036 to adequately invest in urban infrastructure. Additionally, cities across India need an estimated $1.2 trillion in capital funding by 2030 to meet the demands of their burgeoning populations. Developing affordable housing and expanding access to basic amenities, healthcare, education, and a clean environment for all residents are crucial to enhancing overall quality of life. What can Indian cities learn from the global experience to become better governed? What lessons can Indian cities draw from our own experience? Does the solution require minor legislative changes, or are deep structural changes needed? To make sense of India's urbanization, the Indian Express and the Omidyar Network India present a series of discussions on our cities, scrutinizing the challenges and the growth markers that can make Indian cities truly smart and meet our citizens' evolving aspirations.
Today's session will host a special keynote address by Mr. Ashwani Bhatia, whole-time member SEBI, followed by an insightful panel discussion on the topic, how can municipal bodies leverage capital markets to solve climate-related problems at the local level? The session is live on all the social media handles of the Indian Express Group. May I now request Mr. Amitabh Sinha, Editor, Climate and Science, the Indian Express, to join us on stage for the welcome address.
Hi, good evening, all of you. My name is Amitabh Sinha. I am with the Indian Express in Delhi. I'm the newspaper's science and climate editor. So the event here today, I mean, it's a very important discussion, even though it's not discussed very often. I don't have to talk about the impacts of climate change that we are already very familiar with, and certainly not in the city of Mumbai. And a lot of these climate solutions, and I mean, have to be handled at the local municipal level. I mean, most of the time when we hear about climate change, we hear it in the context of a global problem and what the countries are doing, what is happening at the international level, what is happening at the international negotiations. But a lot of solutions are actually happening at the city level. And one of the things that cities face a lot is how to raise money because the the kind of projects that they have to do, which probably they were not doing, say, 5 or 10 years early, involving lots of climate proofing that needs to be done, that is now requiring municipal bodies, urban local bodies, to venture into activities that probably they were not doing earlier. So it's something that's not very commonly discussed, not even in the media. But this is something, the success of these kind of activities is something that will have a bearing on each one of us. You are already seeing Mumbai especially is undergoing such a big transformation, a huge amount of infrastructure that is coming up, and we'll need more such. I'm sure a lot of you have heard this, and I have been hearing it for at least a decade, that whatever, I think the number used to be 70% of India that would exist in 2030 is still to be built. Now that number, I think, we are still talking about 50 or 60%. I thought it would come down, but now the date, I think, has changed. Now people talk in terms of 70% of India is still to be built. 70% of India that would exist in 2050 is still to be built. So a huge amount of infrastructure that needs to be built, but more importantly, infrastructure that is going to be climate proof and climate resilient. And that is one of the things that now urban local bodies are increasingly being forced to think about and raise new resources, get expertise, and do this new kind of work. So that's why I say, even though it's not a very well-discussed topic, not discussed too much, but it's something that is going to have a bearing on each one of our lives. So I would leave it at that. I'll invite Mr. Ashwani Bhatia to give the welcome address, and followed by a panel discussion of people who have been dealing with this issue, both at the on the urban local body side or the municipal side, and on the other hand, people who are providing market opportunities, who are market leaders, and also working with how municipal bodies can transform themselves to do these new kind of works. Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming in. Mr. Bhatia, please.
Can I have the presentation, please? Yeah, a very good evening to all of you. Namaskar, good evening. And I'd like to thank Indian Express for giving me this opportunity to be the keynote speaker this evening on how municipal bodies can leverage capital markets and to solve climate-related problems at the local level. So let me just set some perspective. So this is what SEBI does. We regulate, we develop, and we protect the interests of the investors. And through these three, we enable capital raising in the markets. We were a product of a crisis, the 1992 crisis, and after that, of course, things have really changed. And let's look at the numbers of our economy. The GDP, we are close to or almost at $4 trillion. The bank deposits are currently 211 lakh crores, right? And the forex reserves, about 56 lakh crores, translates to about $670 billion, right? Macros, we are doing very well. We are the fastest growing economy. The deficit numbers, everything is under control. Let's have a look at the numbers in the capital markets. So market capitalization is currently at 460 lakh crores. Huge number. It's about 1.35 times the GDP of the country. That's how big the market capitalization is. And the corporate bond market the outstanding is about 48 lakh crores. So you add 460 lakh, you add 50 lakh crores, you add the amount of money raised in REITs, that's REITs and InvITs, that's another 5 lakh crores. So the sum total of that comes to about 505 lakh crores. This is the market that SEBI actually regulates. So we are very active. Number 5, as far as GDP is concerned, market capitalization, we are number 4. F&O, dirty word these days, but 80% of the world's transactions happen in India. We have, of course, a discussion paper that's already, in the public domain. Something will be done there. But just look at these numbers, and then when we come to municipal bonds, you'll realize the opportunity. Now, a subset of this is the mutual funds. So this presentation was made about a month back. A few days back, we got the latest numbers from the mutual fund. We are now crossing 64 lakh crores. And the FPI number is again about 70 lakh crores. This, of course, is a subset of what you are seeing on the top. And of course, the PMS is another 33 lakh crores. That is also a subset of the equity and the debt markets. Now, the daily turnover in the cash market is about between 1.2 and 1.5 lakh crores. The bond market is just 5,000 crores per day. That is what we want to develop going forward. And derivatives, the average is about 350 to 400 lakh crores on a notional basis daily. So the global average is about 15 to 20 times the ratio between the cash market turnover and the F&O. In India, this is about 250 to 300 times. Of course, it's not healthy, but the retailer loves it, although the odds of making money are worse than that of a casino. It's quite bad, 89% of the people make losses and just 1% make 99% of the profits. So obviously there is a worry. It's becoming a systemic issue, and the discussion paper talks of a number of 52,000 crores that people are, or the retailers are losing every year. And who makes the money? It's only the high frequency algo traders, the other institutions. So there's a very interesting case going on in New York between Millennium and Jane Street. Jane Street alone made a profit of $1 billion on the Indian markets in the F&O segment. That's how big it is. Let's come to the debt market. I told you the outstanding is about 105 lakh crores, the GSEC plus the corporate bonds. That number I've already discussed. Our budget this year for FY 24-25 was about 48 lakh crores. The GDP, I've already told you about that number, 330 lakh crores. And against that, the outstanding in the municipal bond market is just 2,700 crores. So just look at the opportunity. As a comparison, America has an outstanding in the municipal bond or the muni bonds It's about $4 trillion, almost equal to India's GDP. Right? And this market really needs to develop. Over the last couple of years, we've had workshops all over the country. We think that municipalities need to take off. So RBI handles the government securities, SDL, this part, which is the third level as far as governance is concerned, this needs to actually take off. And when I was listening to the introduction, let me assure you that capital ki koi kami nahi hai. There's enough capital. All the municipal bond issues that have actually come into the market so far have been oversubscribed. Since the late 90s, whoever has come, there has been no default also. So we've got quality. The issuers who have come are good, strong municipalities. The arrangement is such that everything is escrowed. So far, the results have been quite good. We have been having seminars all over the country. We've had them in Chandigarh, we had them in Guwahati, Bhubaneswar, Bhopal. We recently had one in Chennai. We've had it in Bangalore, just to spread the awareness. And I can tell you that the pipeline currently is very, very good. MoHUA, or the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, is very supportive. So is the Department of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance. Everything is incentivized. So for the first 200 crores that you raise, 13 crore per 100 crores is the incentive that you get. So if you are raising 200 crores, 26 crore is the incentive that the Government of India gives. The subsequent issue, if it is a green bond, the subsidy is about 20 crores, 10%. So if you look at the yield also, it's quite in your favor. So as a member of SEBI, it's my privilege to witness firsthand the transformative power of the capital markets. I'd like to share my thoughts on how these vital parastatal bodies like municipal corporations, urban local bodies, and municipalities, which form the backbone of our urban and rural landscape, can harness capital markets to address the challenge of climate change within their communities. By 2050, it is expected that over 70% of India's population would be living in cities. As per estimates, these cities are already responsible for over 75% of carbon emissions, with transport and buildings being the largest contributors. Cities contribute about 80% of the GDP of the country. While being contributors, they are also amongst the areas most affected by climate change. As per the Climate Risk Index 2021, India was ranked as the 7th most vulnerable country to climate change. 21 of the 30 most polluted cities around the world are in India. In the last few years, there have been multiple instances of flash floods, wildfires, impact of pollution, heat waves on social life. These changes continue to damage the human existence. Examples of floods in Uttarakhand, Himachal, now we saw something in Kerala, does tell us that climate change has impacted the very strata of human existence. Municipalities, being at the forefront of local governance and service delivery, are uniquely positioned to address these climate issues. They are entrusted with the responsibility to manage infrastructure, public services, and community welfare. And this makes their roles pivotal in implementing climate solutions. It is only fitting and justified that we are in the city which has the largest municipal corporation in the country, the Mumbai Municipal Corporation, which published its first ever climate budget report this year. It made a provision of 10,224 crores or 32.18% of its budget for climate issues. It's so welcome. And Mumbai is also the fourth city in the world after Oslo, London, and New York to launch a climate budget. This shows the seriousness of impact of climate on the functioning of the municipalities and how important it is for the municipalities to be equipped to tackle this problem. Last year, Bhopal also became the first Indian city to adopt the UN Sustainable Development Goals and track its progress in meeting them. Bangalore has also undertaken various lake restoration projects to rejuvenate and preserve its water bodies. Government's initiatives of Clean Cities, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, Indore has also consistently ranked as the cleanest city for the last 7 years. The problems that face municipalities. Cities are still dependent on grants and transfers from state, central governments as a source of funding for their infrastructure projects, given the inadequacy of tax collections. However, these funds come with conditions, are late, and are often earmarked for specific projects or general operations. Dependence on grants limits municipalities' fiscal autonomy. It constrains their ability to take independent financial decisions and respond to local needs. Alongside, property tax collections need to improve. For India, the property tax collection as a percentage of GDP is a dismal 0.2%. With the infra required to tackle climate change, cities need to be equipped with robust financing to develop this required infrastructure. It is estimated that each city, on an average, would require at least $3 billion by 2030 to tackle climate change. In order to enable municipalities to tap the capital markets, SEBI has issued a framework for issuance and listing of municipal bonds securities. Municipal bonds are an alternative option available to the municipalities to raise funds for financing long-term projects, develop innovative ways to generate revenues, undertake projects for improving lifestyle and well-being of citizens. Till date, 11 issuers have raised an amount of 2,684 crores, with some corporations even undertaking multiple issuances. Relating to green bonds, to promote sustainable practices, SEBI in November 22 issued the enabling provisions for municipal corporations to raise funds through issue of green debt securities. Indore and Ghaziabad have taken the lead. These debt instruments are designed to raise capital specifically for projects with environmental benefits, whether it's financing solar energy installations, developing energy-efficient public buildings, enhancing urban green spaces. Green bonds provide municipalities with a dedicated funding source. In the current year, Ahmedabad and Vadodara have already raised 300 crores by issuing green bonds. Both were repeat issuers. And I already told you that Indore and Ghaziabad have done this. Even Pimpri and Chinchwad Municipal Corporation made its first bond issuance last year. I've told you about the encouragement that is provided by Mahua. There's an interest subvention of 10 crores is provided under Amrit 2. Municipalities can also enter into partnerships with private sector entities to finance, build, and operate public infrastructure projects. Through PPPs, municipalities can leverage private capital and expertise while sharing risks and benefits. Another area we are very encouraged about is InvITs. With the introduction of REITs and InvITs in India in 2014, SEBI provided an avenue for investors to participate in real estate and infrastructure segment while affording the developers a mode for monetization of their assets. The first InvIT was listed in 2017. Today we have more than 20 InvITs which have raised over 4.5 lakh crores. This includes 2 public sector InvITs, NHAI and Power Grid as well. Securitization is another way in which municipalities can raise funds upfront. So, just to emphasize that the soft infrastructure is with the municipalities or with the cities. And through a model or through your financial modeling, there is a way and manner in which you can monetize. So we've seen the success of airports, PPPs. It started with Cochin, then of course Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and so on and so forth. And it is seen as a very, very successful model. So why can't state governments, for example, also monetize their road assets just like NHAI has monetized their road assets through the InvIT route? So capital is no constraint, if you ask me. It's just the modeling that needs to be done. Municipalities also need to be confident that instead of just raising 200 crores, 250 crores, think a little big. Think about 1,000 crore project. You have the land, you have the resources. There are some projects that generate revenues immediately. And Indore has actually shown that. If you immediately, build your solar farms, the cash flows actually start. Talking of soft infrastructure, who doesn't need a good hospital? Who doesn't need a good school? Who doesn't need a good college? And revenue models can be made, or through the projections, I think it is possible. Another thing, of course, about municipalities is that you can't go under. Your existence is perpetual, right? So, like corporates who can be taken to IBC, cities can't be, because you have the ability to tax. So this number that I just told you about, 0.2% only is the amount, 0.2% is the property tax collection. People are unhappy paying that, but when you live in an apartment in Mumbai, you're willing to give 10 rupees a square feet every month, right? So you're willing to pay toll. You're willing to pay a higher price for vegetables. You're willing to pay toll on roads, right? So all the change that needs to be brought in cities, I think it's a matter of time that this will develop. And we are very encouraged by the responses that we have got so far. Let this number of 2,700 crores reach at least 1 lakh. The potential is there, the capital is there, and I'm sure in the years forward, this market will actually take off. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bhatia, for that insightful perspective. Moving on, our next, we move to the panel discussion that is about to begin. As we discussed earlier, the focus will be on how municipal bodies can leverage capital markets to solve climate-related problems at the local level. And please join me in welcoming our esteemed panelists. First, Mr. Abhay Kantak, Senior Director, Consulting, CRISIL Market Intelligence and Analytics. Mr. Arnab Chaudhary, EVP and Group Head, Debt Capital Markets, SBI CAPS. Santosh Tiwari, Chief Accountant, Vadodara Municipal Corporation, Gujarat. Shekhar Singh, Commissioner, Pimpri Chinchwad Municipal Corporation, Pune. And Shilpa Kumar, Partner, Omidyar Network India. The session will be moderated by Amitabh Sinha. May I please request you to join the panelists as well.
Thank you. So we have two representatives from municipal corporations, two from financial institutions, and we have our partner from Omidyar Network as well. So we'll have a round of questions, and then we'll throw the thing out to the audience as well, so you can ask your questions after we go through a couple of rounds here. So to begin with, I'll have a more sort of a very generic question to all of you, because each one of you have very different experiences and different kinds of examples that you can cite. So if you could tell us, what are the municipal corporations now? What are the things that are getting imposed on the work of municipal corporations as a result of climate change? What is climate change forcing you to do, which probably you were not doing earlier? And what are the kind of difficulties or hurdles that you are facing in municipalities in general? What are the kinds of difficulties or hurdles that you are facing in doing these new kind of activities? So I'll start with Mr. Kantak, and then we can go along.
Good evening, and thank you for Indian Express and Omidyar Network for organizing this and inviting CRISIL to share his perspective. I just want to lay certain things in context. The first thing is that urban development, as per the Constitution, is a state subject, and every state government has a structure to it to follow. So all municipal corporations in the country are not the same. In Maharashtra and Gujarat, you have the municipal corporation providing all kinds of services: water, wastewater, solid waste management, and even hospitals, schools, education. And they also have a discretionary service called the public transport. So some cities also provide the city bus services. This is not true for all the other corporations. Like if you go to Bangalore, it's the Bangalore BBMP, Mahanagar Palike, just provides solid waste management, electricity, and roads. So that's the three things which are very common as a subject that all cities are providing. So in terms of climate change, I think managing the street lighting, managing the solid waste and roads is common. So how do you manage and dispose of your waste to address climate change aspects is very important. Cities like Mumbai provide bus services also. So for them, how do you provide EV buses is the challenge. That's one. And the larger consumption of or emitter of greenhouse gases or contribution to climate change is the buildings. So how do you build green buildings? So how do you create DCR codes which will promote green buildings or reduce the impact of construction activity and buildings and energy consumption in the city to the greenhouse effect? So that's the challenge that every city is facing, and all the municipal corporations are tasked with that.
Right. Thank you so much. Now, Mr. Shekhar Singh, I mean, your municipal corporation is one of the very active ones, also one of the leading ones now trying to experiment with different kind of innovative financing mechanisms. So what's your experiences been with climate projects?
Amitabh, as far as projects are concerned, there are two ways to look at it. One way is that whatever infrastructure that you have currently, you need to make it disaster resilient. A lot of it, especially your STPs, your water treatment plants, which are by the rivers and other infrastructure, which becomes a part of the climate resilience or a resilience to what the climate change can bring in forms of disasters, extreme rainfall events, etc. And second is also projects that you intend to take up or you need to take up to move in a direction where you are also contributing towards the whole battle that the whole world is trying to wage, trying to stop the impacts of the climate change. Now, if you divide into these two projects, the kind of project that cities are now taking up, Sir was also mentioning, some, and you also mentioned, are projects which are of very big ticket size. Like, for example, riverfront development projects. Pune started, Sabarmati started, Ahmedabad started. And now if you look at the kind of riverfront development projects, which is not just, beautification, but it also includes your cleaning of the rivers, upgradation of your STPs, etc. So for example, PCMC has 3 rivers, Pavna, Indrayani and Muda. And each riverfront development project costs something like about 1,000 crores. That's like the lower estimate, and Pavna is about 1,400 crore. Then if you start moving towards sustainable mobility, for example, which is something that you intend to do up to create a sort of a pyramidal structure in your city, where you intend to create what is globally being recognized as 15-minute neighborhoods. 15-minute neighborhood concept is a concept where you do your daily chores, etc. You are going to a saloon, you are going to a grocery store. Please don't go by a car. Go by walking, go by cycling, things like that. But for that, it's a chicken egg problem, right? You need to create that infra for people to start adopting those practices. Now, if I intend to do that and we are implementing a project like, for example, say it's called Harit Setu, which we are implementing in one of our neighborhoods, which is a 15-minute neighborhood concept that we are trying to create. That one project cost me 200 crore. And that is the, we are going for a green bond for that very project. But that's just one neighborhood in the city. We've identified 15 such neighborhoods. If I intend to take them all together, it's something like about 3,000 crore that will be required to implement that last mile connectivity, first mile connectivity, which then integrates to my public transport. So these are the kind of projects that all cities are taking, and it can be multiple things, right? As he's pointed out, in terms of solid waste management, in terms of liquid waste management, in terms of improving your air quality. Now, improving your air quality depends also on multiple factors. There are a few regulatory measures that you intend to take up in terms of transitioning from IC engine to e-vehicles. If I look at it from a city perspective, my transport buses, the buses that we run, both Pune Municipal Corporation, Pimpri-Chinchwad, we have a common bus corporation. We have something like about 35% e-buses currently running out of a total fleet of 2,400. Each e-bus is almost double the cost of CNG. So that's a trade-off that we need to think about whenever we are talking about it. And the kind of bus strength that I should have in Pune is minimum 3,500, but a comfortable should be 7,600, whereas I have only 2,400. So if you extrapolate it, that's almost like what 5,000 crore required only to have a global benchmark of the buses that the city requires. And there can be n number of examples that I can keep enumerating. One thing about municipal bond and why it's required specifically for climate change projects is there are few projects which you may like to delay. There are few projects which you can't delay. And if I take up a project which is 1,000 crore investment now, I need that investment now. I can't say that 10 years later when I'll have the money, I'll take it up, or every year I'll give 100 crore and the project will get completed in 10 years' time. The advantage that accrues, I think I'm overshooting your time limit, but the advantage that accrues over, dipping into a capital market is that I get that entire money now. So I can implement that project in a 2 years time frame rather than allocating budget to that minuscule amount every year and waiting for 7 to 8 years for that project to get over.
Thank you. Mr. Arnab Chaudhary, what's your assessment of what the requirements of municipal corporations are?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me here. A couple of things that we generally worked as the merchant banker who are associated and try to help municipalities coming up and getting ready to tap the capital markets, right? So SEBI has been very progressive in the way they have structured, they have made the design and has been trying to promote this. But still there are things that needs to be handhold for the municipalities. Apart from anything else, it is because the municipalities have their own issues, their day-to-day issues which they need to work on. The finance is only one portion of the whole spectrum, right? So we have been proud to be associated with all the three that had happened last year and are associated with few of those as of right now as well. Apart from what Sekhar has mentioned about the projects that can be taken up by the municipalities to tap the capital markets, I just want to mention two reasons why. Actually, before we came into this cabin, when we were sitting out there, somebody was asking also that, is it the only way we can raise resources? It is not. The banks are willing to provide you funds. There are multilaterals who are willing to give you loans. Bilateral loans can always be done. What helps you tapping the capital markets are that, suppose you are doing a green project. The capital markets makes you, basically, it forces you to maintain the parameters, the KPIs, which are required to be maintained to enable that greenness that you require to have it. If it is a bilateral transaction, I can become lazy and I may not maintain all those parameters that are essential to be maintained. Capital markets brings in the discipline, which otherwise at times, not by choice, but because of the other commitment, you may not be putting it on the priority list at the top of it, right? So that discipline is brought in by capital markets. The other thing which helps, which gets helped by the capital market, and which is actually, I am very encouraged by that, is that many municipalities have gone through the process of getting ready for capital markets only to get their books or the house in order. I'll just give you an example. I come from Assam. Guwahati Municipal Corporation has given us the assignment. We are working with them. They just came, we met Mr. Bhatia and his team in his office about 10-15 days ago. The challenge was that their books are still not double entry. The accounting books were still at the cash basis. We went to SEBI, and they were very forthcoming. They said, fine, as long as going forward you are going to that route, you can still go that way. So that kind of flexibility is available. But what was more encouraging was that it's about a 9-month to 1 year project for them to get ready. They're willing to do that, although it could be that they may not get the rating that is required for them to get into the market. What they are encouraged about is that in the process of doing all this, my books, my house is going to be very, very, streamlined. And as and when my rating thing comes, I am willing to look at it. So that is the discipline bit that is brought in by the capital markets. The last point which I wanted to say, again, I'll take that example only, because we are talking about climate change. Guwahati, for those who know, is just on the bank of a very large river, but it is suffering from very, very severe scarcity of groundwater. It has all been pulled up, and there is no groundwater level. And secondly, people are now scared of rains because there is the flash floods that happens after every rain. There are projects that we are trying to identify, and the other problem which I feel many of the municipalities doesn't have, some of those smaller ones have, is that the roads, although we talked about the roads are maintained by PWD. Many of those municipal works or the taxations are going to somebody else. The municipalities are having only few small things, only the properties taxes that they can collect. And then obviously there is a pushback, because if you can't indefinitely, as much as you want, you can't indefinitely increase the taxes. So there are constraints, but the heartening thing is that people are trying to look beyond those constraints and trying to see how they can tap the markets. Yeah.
Right. This is interesting, actually, going to the markets to discipline yourself and streamline your own house. So that Mr. Tiwari, now I come to you. So you've been very hands-on on raising resources for Vadodara Municipal Corporation. So if you could also tell us, why did Vadodara, need to go to the market to raise money for its activities?
Yeah, thank you, Amitabh ji, Indian Express, and other sponsors. Regarding Vadodara, I would like to say that it is a small city with the population of 20 lakhs, around 22 lakhs. And ULB means urban local body. Many of you people might be interacting daily with ULB, but all of them are not aware actually what ULB is playing role in their life. Can anybody tell me how ULBs are impacting their life? In short, one or two answers only. Yeah, madam, there are lots of functions, but in short, I would like to say from birth to death, you are daily interacting with urban local bodies. At the time of birth, you need birth certificate, which we are providing. Death certificates we are providing. Even nowadays, marriage certificates are also we are providing. And between those, every services ULB is being assigned to do. All, as Arnabji said and Shekhar sir also said, that in different areas, functions may differ. But urban local bodies are generally also known as, you must have listened, Nagar Palika, Mahanagar Palika. What this Nagar is? This Nagar is actually Nal, Gutter or Rasta. So earlier, jab tak ye Nagar tha, means then it was okay. We were not, because we have to provide a pure drinking water. We have to discharge the sewage. And we have to provide for smooth transportation a road. But now the demand expectation has gone up. Now we have to provide treated, very well portable water. We have to treat multiple times. We cannot provide the water which we are just taking from French wells or river. Sewerage, drainage cannot be discharged in river. Now NGT is there. We have to treat secondary treatment. Now tertiary treatment has been come. So just discharging sewage is a little cost, but treating at tertiary level, it requires huge funds. Apart from that, earlier roads were that, but by nowadays we need bridges and all this thing, which flyovers, ROBs, FOBs and everything. So these kind of the demand is being, meanwhile many other functions are also has been allotted. We have lots of mandatory and obligatory functions which we have to perform. So to fund our projects, as Shekhar sir said, that there are many projects which can be delayed, there are many projects which cannot be delayed. So if I talk about Vadodara, we were treating 200 MLD of sewage, sewage was generated around 400 MLD and we were treating 200. So for this sewage, we have mobilized the funds from market. Earlier we had mobilized 100 crore in March. That was for water and sewage. And in March 24, it was purely for STP. And now we proudly say that we treat 440 MLD. Whatever sewerage we generate, we have treated them. And now again, by treating the tertiary level, we are going to sell that water to industries and we would be generating revenues also. Why these funds need? You might have assessed in Mumbai, Delhi or even in Pune or everything. The pattern. Earlier the rainfall in 1 year, it was hardly 1 mm or something like that. Now in the span of 1 hour, 3 to 4 mm or something like that rainfall we are getting it, whereas our stormwater drains are designed at the capacity of 1 mm. 4-5 times more rain we are getting. That's why you are seeing this flooding and all this thing. Further regarding this climate, Mumbai and even Delhi has in March and April, March has seen the hottest ever night of last 10 to 15 years. Means it was 35 degrees at night in March and April, which earlier was not there. So nowadays, lots of demands for this new works are being has come. That's why we have adopted for this financing model of bond. Our both bonds were very successful bond, and it is highly subscribed and lowest coupon rate bonds. Thank you.
Thank you. Shilpa, if you could talk about the kind of requirements that are being felt by the municipal corporations, and also if money is the biggest problem that they face. Right?
Yeah, thank you, Amitabh. So I think clearly one thing is very clear, that Indian cities have been a very big contributor to our growth story. And the fact is that most people come to cities in search of livelihoods. And therefore, we really see these as places with high concentration of people, looking not just for a place to earn their living, but also a place to live. And therefore, probably, in response to Mr. Tiwari's question, at a macro level, cities are so important for economic growth. But at a micro level, I think lives in the cities are determined very much by city governance. The air you breathe, the water you drink, the parks you have to go to, all of this is really, a result of what city governments are doing. And at scale. And I think in India, we've seen unprecedented scale. So Mr. Bhatia quoted the number of Indian cities which are in the most polluted list. But the fact is that city governments are also struggling with scale and with probably a lack of resources, because for most of them, even own revenues is much below 50% of what they need every year. So when I kind of, just step back and look at what are the key things probably as we are in the middle of climate change, facing more extreme events, affecting also the most vulnerable people in the city, to me it seems like there is adequate capital, like Mr. Bhatia said. But what's the problem then? And if you really think about it, it's like what any investor always thinks about. It's the creditworthiness of the borrower and how that creditworthiness is communicated. And really what one means by that creditworthiness is how robust are your revenues? How can you lower the financial barrier for investors to invest in your bonds? And also, how are you communicating your creditworthiness through current accounts, audited accounts, financial statements that can be easily accessed by the investors and credit rating agencies? So I think one really needs to think a little bit about those barriers from a point of view of municipal bonds. But I also want to extend the discussion to, what about other global pools of finance that are available? I mean, the whole world is really connected by the climate issue. And therefore, a lot of money is going to be made available for cities to take action which either mitigates carbon emissions, what we call climate mitigation projects, but also there will be money available for projects which do things like just rejuvenating water bodies or building green spaces, what is typically termed as just building adaptation and resilience of the city. And those projects also money can be made available. But just like what was pointed out by Sebi earlier, there is supply, but what stops one from really accessing that supply of global capital? And I think two things to really think about is what are the technical barriers? Because a lot of this global capital has conditionalities. A lot of this global capital has very specific ways of looking at projects, looking for data, looking for how these projects fit into the city's overall plans. And therefore, how do we build capacity to do that? I think that's the first thing to think about. The other thing to think about is when we think of adaptation projects, which are actually a little bit more complex probably than even climate mitigation projects to understand and evaluate, how do we build those capacities? And these projects are also typically much smaller in size, and is there an opportunity to pool different projects together? What are the ways to really break those barriers? I think that's all worth thinking about.
Thank you. That's actually a good segue to get into our second round. I would request, I would ask each one of our speakers and guests to dwell on 2 or 3 things in this second round. One, mostly we have talked about when, in terms of intervening, utilizing the prospects of capital markets. We have mainly been talking about issuance of bonds. So one, how do you make these bonds, very successful? How do you ensure that people come and buy your bonds? That's number one. Number two, as Shilpa pointed out, are there municipal corporations which are using other innovative ways to raise money from other areas, right, from international financial institutions or even domestic financial institutions apart from issuing bonds? And number three, the issue of capacity building. What we have seen is mostly already these strong municipal corporations are the ones which are more delving into these things. We have 2 municipal corporations represented here, but a huge lot of municipal corporations don't have the capacity to actually, they are not even thinking in these terms. So how do you reach out to them? How do you build capacity? So if all these 3 questions, each one of you can deal with. Thank you.
I think everybody's saying that there is a lot of capital available, and this capital has to be repaid back. So I think let's get to the construct of municipal finances. Typically, you need municipal revenues around 3 to 4% of the GDP. We are at 0.9 to 1%. Can we go to 3 to 4% immediately? Probably not. Can we go to 2%? Yes. How do you get there? 0.15% of the GDP is property tax. 30,000 crores is the entire property tax collections in the country, which is abysmally low. Typically, you need to have around 1% of GDP for a developing country like India as the property tax. 0.6% is probably the lower threshold that what one can look at. So first is that we have to go from 0.15% to 6%. See, property tax is just not about revenue. It also symbolizes vibrancy of a municipal administration. It's like know your customer, like know your properties. Finally, a city government is serving a property and the people living on that. So how is that a city government is not knowing its tax base? I think that's a very fundamental thing that cities need to look at. So that's the first step that we need to go. And there are avenues how you can increase the property tax. I think I'll not get to the mechanics, but I'll just give you the construct, what's the roadmap. The second source of income, actually a city requires income from wealth, when I say property, income from salaries, like you need that. That is also another source, profession tax. The constitution allows you to tax, every authority in a city to tax. That limit is around 2,400 rupees per annum. That was set in 1980s. The 14th Finance Commission said that it should need to go to 10,000. I think that is something that needs to be tapped into. In Gujarat, when they abolished octroi in 2008-9, they devolved the responsibility of profession tax collection to municipal corporations. And I was speaking to Mr. Tiwari, I was saying that, Baroda collects around 60 crores of profession tax every year, which is a good source of income. So I think that is something that needs to be tapped into. The third is, we talk about cities as engines of the economy. 70% of our GDP comes from cities. But how does a city benefit from the economic growth that they are expected to foster? So finally, you need a tax or a revenue source which is linked to consumption, which was octroi earlier, and it was abused, and it was, many cities abolished octroi. They substituted by octroi compensation. State government gave them octroi compensation. But octroi compensation did not keep pace with inflation, so the potency of that revenue got lost. So in 2017, the only state that was levying octroi was Maharashtra. Octroi or the local body tax, it was called then. And that revenue was not there in the books of any government in the local government in the country. So when the GST came in 2017, there was, you calculated the revenue neutral rate. So they are taking into account an expenditure which was incurred in Maharashtra, but never incurred in any other state. So Maharashtra benefited because we got octroi compensation cess. And it was 15,000 crores, increased by 8% every year, and that, continues. I think that is extended to 2026 now, and, that is there. So you need a revenue source, which is linked to consumption. That will only give you the capacity to, invest. Typically, a city requires around 10,000 rupees per capita as their, expenditure, both for revenue and capital expenditure. What cities are having today is around 4,000 rupees per capita on a general, and their revenue O&M expenditure is around 3,700, 3,800 rupees per capita. That leaves you around 200 rupees per capita as for making capital expenditure, which is highly inadequate. Property tax, if you collect completely, that will probably only meet the O&M expenditure requirements of certain activities. So you need that revenue source which will allow you to invest. And when you talk about bonds, bonds are there. So how do you repay when you don't have a surplus? So this income related to consumption is also important. And I would think that around 0.25% of GDP, that's around 60,000 crores, is something that I think should be shared with cities everywhere. Now, there is some cities which are economically vibrant will have good GST collections, they can get a share out of it. Some cities will not be economically vibrant, they will not get that revenue source. So finally, you need a state finance commission, like the Central Finance Commission, which looks at the revenues requirement of all local bodies, both rural and urban local bodies. And they will see which are the cities which are getting good GST share, some are not getting it. So how do you get the vertical and horizontal equity in public finance? That's very important. We work in Vietnam also. I think Vietnam is very fantastic. They say that next 5 years, this is your revenue requirement. Hanoi is, Ho Chi Minh is, for that matter, is very economically vibrant. 25% of the tax they will retain, 75% they give back to the central government. We work in Can Tho, which is a city 200 kilometers from Ho Chi Minh City, and they are not so economically vibrant. Their government says that you retain 90% of the tax, 10% you devolve back. So cities, also need a revenue income source which is predictable, certain, and the timing. See, once that city, even if today say you will get a grant from government, 500 crores, 600 crores, but are you going to get the grant in the 7th year, 8th year from now? So one of the reasons why capacity is less for execution, because cities do not have the predictability to know their income. Once you know a predictability in income, you can do capital expenditure planning. So that is something that is very important when there is an objective criteria for sharing of GST from SFC devolution. That becomes very important. What is happening today in India is the cities are moving from one mission to the other mission. JNRM mission, Amrut mission kind of a thing. They are not working on mission mode. They're seeing what money is coming and then they're doing that. So if they have greater control about how the money is going to flow to them, I think they will be able to plan better and take a much more multi-year view on their capital investment planning. So that's on the consumption side. So these are things that, are very important. The role of SFC is very important. Sharing of GST revenues is also very important. If put all this together, I think you can go from 0.9% of the GDP to 2% of the GDP. So it's around 1,50,000 crores of revenues as per 2022. If you extrapolate to current revenue GDP numbers, the municipal revenues can go to 4,50,000 crores. And that's the aim that we need to have. We talk about US having such a large municipal borrowing program. their municipal revenues are 6 to 7% of the GDP. So I think that construct is required, and that this is so fundamental to local governments in India. Get them the revenue that they require to expend and make them accountable. And there are various mechanisms that you can have in place to ensure this, with greater financial empowerment, they can be made accountable. So that's the broad construct that we at CRISIL would like to see when cities become empowered financially to spend on what the city requires. Thank you.
Shekhar?
Amitabh, I think there were 2-3 kind of questions that you were asking. On the first of that, in terms of how you make it more attractive, I think one thing that I see missing, he talked about, and we've been talking about $4 trillion in US. A lot of investment that comes in the municipal bonds in US is also from the local businesses and the local companies, which is still missing in India to an extent. And when we were trying to do our first municipal bond, short of advertising it with SEBI says you can't and all those things, we were trying to engage local, and that's a luxury that PCMC can have because we have a lot of industries around. But even in that, the buy-in that can be there from the industry can be much more. So in terms of that, I think the industries also need to start, because we have otherwise a very good symbiotic relationship with the industries, for example. So we did try to do it. We could get some bit of success, but when you can go the full hog, I think once the local industries, local businesses start to invest into the growth of the city, because then you become part of the growth story of that city, I think that is something that will really push that matrix going forward. If you ask me from a commissioner perspective, you're asking that question to Mr. Tiwari, did PCMC had to go out with a bond? I am not very sure. We did it, A, because I really felt that in due course of time, we will have to do it. It's a rolling economic ball that you can't really stop beyond a point. And the sooner that you get into the mold, whether you go it from a discipline perspective, whether you go it from dipping into a funds perspective, it's something that a municipal corporation should begin to do, or cities should begin to think about it. But in terms of, a public understanding of the municipal bond is still very, very low. These things help out, but if you go onto the street, the kind of news that Mr. Tiwari was saying, or we were trying to negotiate a multilateral debt instrument for PCMC, and the kind of news floating around was Karzbazari zali, Diwalkhori zali. This is what the general thing is. Because people begin to think that if you're dipping into a debt instrument, it can be municipal bond, it could be multilateral debt instrument, or from a simple commercial bank. They feel that, you are taking loan means in India, that mindset is still there, that, those things are there. So I think in terms of a public, projection perspective also, I think cities need to take those steps. We took that step when we were coming out with municipal bond. We'll be again doing that. In terms of what you said, what the other finances are, I think he spoke exceedingly well in terms of what the possibilities could be. I feel one stepping block, as Arnab was saying, or as Bhatia sir was also saying, with regards to cities preparing themselves from an accounting perspective, for example, moving from cash to accrual accounting, etc. I think property tax reform is also one very critical aspect as we move ahead in the bond market. And for that matter, I would really give credit to the Amrut 2.0. He very rightly pointed out, we are moving from one mission to the other. But at least one thing that mission does, or these mission do, is try to push the cities towards a particular reform. I was just sharing with you the kind of property reform that we have done in the past 1 year. We've moved from 420 crore in 2021 to 1,000 crore last year. That's a jump of about 500 crore in the property taxation in the past 3 years. And we've been able to use technology, we've been able to use other things to usher into those reforms. 30% of our properties were unassessed. It's a national platform, but 30% of our properties were unassessed, not in our assessment framework only. And just by including those, our property taxation would increase by about 300 crore starting next year. Why is that important? Because all cities end up ring fencing their property taxation as an escrow mechanism to for the bond issuance. So I think these things are something that we really need to take forward, and that could also correlate well in terms of what the capacity building that you were talking about. Few states, for example, Tamil Nadu, I know they are trying to, the small municipalities, I heard they're trying to create a corporation, or they're trying to have a collective backing, pull financing for those cities, which can help those smaller cities, because it's many a times easier for the bigger cities to go into it. A city like Bombay might even think that maybe they need it or not. Then that's a very different debate. But then for small cities, it becomes all the more difficult. We could issue a municipal bond with a AA+ rating. Hardly like 4 or 5 cities in India might have the AA+ rating. But as you move forward, as you move down the ladder in terms of the rating, etc., also the cost of finance can become that much more difficult. And then that is when the public perspective, the public projection in terms of the cost that you are having to pay for a municipal bond starts playing on the minds of the commissioners, starts playing on the minds of the public representatives, the bodies, the mayors, etc. And that is when the debate begins to get little this thing. Just final point, in terms of the climate financing, we keep hearing a lot in terms of the global finance that Ms. Shilpa was also referring to as far as green projects are concerned. I'm not very sure where that financing is going, because we are not getting it. The cities, I don't know about Vadodara, that has been my experience. They say there is green financing somewhere floating around in the ether or the atmosphere. It is not coming to the ground yet. And that has also got to do with the kind of yields that Indore got or Ghaziabad got on the green bonds, which is something not very, very exceedingly different from a normal bond. So if that be the case, I think we also need to start looking and have a hard look as to how the green bonds can become more and more attractive for the cities. Because if I go out and if a commercial bank is giving the same rate of interest as a municipal bond, there's a decision matrix in my mind as to why I would go through the entire drill of doing that and not take the loan from commercial bank, short of what he was referring to, the various advantages that are there. But on PCMC side, we are again now coming up with a green bond, also because of the incentive matrix. The real success of the municipal bonds will be when cities begin to issue bonds outside the incentive structure. So when I don't get 20 crore and still I'm ready to come out with a municipal bond, is when the real success of a municipal bond for a city can be. Otherwise, we issue 200 crore, we are again issuing 200 crore for the green bond, and it offsets very well for me in terms of the yield that I get because of the incentive.
Arnab?
I will just start from where Shekhar has left off, is that there is no green premium in the market, which is a shame, because the cost for issuing a bond, because of the compliances, the process that you need to take in, is actually a little expensive. It builds into your cost, but we still don't have investors who are clamoring for these assets, where they are willing to pay a little bit more to get those meaningful assets. It's because most probably, unlike in Europe and in Far East, the investors don't have an obligation to look at something which is ESG compliant, if you may. That is the reason. I think we will have to reach that stage. There are discussions which are happening with us also, but when it comes to finally putting in writing the check, it is not actually coming to that. We are not crossing the last hurdle. It's an utopian, if you may say, thought that it will happen at some point of time. Multilaterals have eye for these green things. They want to do this. They want to fund it. I'm just touching upon some practical issues that we face, or they face for that matter. We, on their behalf, face, or we, in terms of the issuer, face those, are that as of right now, the project sizes that we are bringing to the markets are too small. For a multilateral, for 100 crore issuance or 200 crore issuance, where it is going through the EBP platform, which is mandated by SEBI, they might end up getting a portion of that. So say they may end up getting 50 crores. In the whole scheme of things, it doesn't add up to their economics. So basically, their whole approval process is as long as a new municipality coming to the market, about 9 months. After that, if there is no guarantee that they are going to get an allocation, they are not willing to do that process. We did one with somebody. I'll not mention the municipality. The process went through. One of the multilaterals had incurred a cost of 1.25 crores only to get their own internal process done. And when eventually it came to the table saying that you might end up getting 5 crore of allocation, they said, I will not even go that route. So it was kind of, so that is a challenge that we have. Couple of things that I think, again, aspirational that we need to look at is one, the other thing that is that for municipalities like Pimpri, for municipalities like NDMC, we are working with them. For municipalities like Mumbai, 1,000 crore projects can be viable. But a municipality like Tirupur, I'm taking Chennai because he mentioned about it, there may not be enough projects available, right? So what we have to look at is, can we have a ring fencing of some pool structure? Problem is smaller municipalities with smaller projects may not add up to the rating that we require. So is there a possibility of credit enhancing those pools? NAFID, IFCL are being mandated to look at possibility of credit enhancing these pools. We are working very actively with NAFID to see if economically those are viable. Even those guys who are doing that credit enhancement, is it making sense for them? And secondly, does it really make any, or does it really push up the pricing for the municipalities, right? So that is something we are working on, work in progress, and again, aspirational thought. Hopefully that is something which we'll have to bring in. The tier 2, tier 3 cities or municipalities will have to come to the market because they are in the need for this market. Others are coming in, one, for the eyeballs, secondly, for the incentive, and thirdly, for the discipline bit that comes in, right? People like Sekhar, people like Santoshji are driven for it. That is fine. But how many of them are there, right? So that is one. The last thing that I want to talk about is that we have to bring in he talked about the corporates. Why can't we bring in the common people as well, right? Indore takes pride on the fact that they have been the cleanest city for some time. When that bond came in, we decided to have it as a public issuance so that people in Indore can feel pride in investing in that particular bond, saying ये मेरा bond है, ठीक है, इसका पैसा से मेरा ही सड़क साफ होने वाला है. That is a sentimental thought. Practicality of it is, मैं इंदौर का हूँ, मैंने उस bond में लगाया, कल को मुझे पैसे की ज़रूरत है, I cannot sell that because it is not liquid. So we need to bring in that liquidity bit of it into those bonds. We keep on talking about, and that liquidity will come as more and more issuances happen. We are very optimistic about that fact. SEBI is optimistic, DEA is optimistic that the number of issuances will go up, and it has to go up from different parts of it cannot be concentrated only with Gujarat, UP, Maharashtra. It has to be from all across so that everybody can. And once the number of issuances goes up, most probably, hopefully, the liquidity will also go up. Only thing that I can put in the last bit is that we keep on talking about US bond market, muni market being very big. One fundamental difference is that if you are an investor there, you get tax incentives. You don't get it in India. There has been representation. I think we are not there yet. But if suppose somebody is investing in a municipal bond issued by a municipality, is there a possibility to give him some discount on his property tax? Can we give him some discount on his parking charges? For the corporates who are investing in a municipal bond issued by, say, Pimpri, can there be some incentive given in terms of the taxes that he needs to pay, or some kind of, I don't know what that will be, so that people are incentivized in that way. We don't have to go the tougher rule or the CBDT for tax. This can be something, or this is something which we may have to, especially for the public to come in, if they don't get a tax benefit, but can they get a priority on the parking? Maybe. We don't know, but these are the evolving thoughts that need to come into the market for people to get incentivized to this.
Thank you. Santoshi?
I think first question was regarding this process problems and achievements or what.
How do you make it more attractive?
More attractive. So first of all, I would, in brief, I would like to narrate about the problems. So when in 2019 we decided that we would be going for the bonds, as Mr. Arnab says and SEBI says, we need 3 years certified balance sheet by an independent chartered accountant, not by our chief auditor. By the virtue of act, we have chief auditor, but they need certified by outside independent chartered accountant. At that time, my balance sheet was ready for 14-15. And I was supposed to borrow municipal funds from municipal bond. Within the span of 1.5 years, I have finalized the balance sheet of 6 financial years, and that too of the accrual-based accounting system and national municipal accounting system. And they got it certified by an independent auditor. What benefited me? By doing this, I had refined my books. I had known many things about I have 400 bank accounts which I came to know. Out of that, 150 are non-operative. It shows that it has 54 crore. In that, there is no balance, actually. So one thing is that. Means it was since years. But what benefit I got? VMC has 5,000 court cases. I think Mumbai might be having court cases more than 10,000, 15,000. Because in bonds, we have to declare our materiality policy. We had defined our materiality policy that our cases over and above 25 lakhs. And believe me, more than 5,000 cases were there. I have updated the status of that cases which earlier were not aware. We were not aware. What? We need latest status of the same. We had done that. Regarding balance sheet, I would proudly say that our annual report was awarded by Institute of Chartered Accountant for 21-22, the only ULB in India to whom the Institute of Chartered Accountants has given the award. So this is what we are there. You can see it is on websites. We are trying to match the standards with corporate, although we are not actually, and we don't want to actually, because our motto is quite different. But we are trying to improve day by day. So one thing is regarding court cases and all this thing. These are the few things which what makes us. They were needing, means Arnab ji, your team said that they need certificate of incorporation. I said, we are not the company. From where we can give you the certificate on? No, we need it. SEBI need it. So I had gone to the archives. I have searched the papers of 1966 when but I didn't got the year. So I had gone to the archives, and by your I got this incorporation that when my corporation was, it was 1/4/1966, where I have order with me actually. Even our municipal secretary department was not having that. So these are the things. मैं एक बोलता हूँ कि जैसे कहा जाता है कि अगर अपने परिवार के बारे में जानना हो जो आपको भी ना पता हो तो राजनीति में आ जाइए. तो अगर इफ़ यू वांट कि आपके कॉरपोरेशंस में क्या प्रॉब्लम्स है तो सर वी शुड फ्रीक्वेंटली कम विद म्युनिसिपल बॉन्ड इश्यूज. So many problems we came to know, we tried to rectify it. The successful, why I am narrating, see, all the bonds were 3, 4, 5 times success. Our bond at that time, when the war was going on, in March 22, COVID was there, Ukraine-Russia war was going on, our issue was subscribed by more than 10 times. And 7.15% we got the rate. Rate was less, but the Sekhar sir in our discussion said that the spread. So we got the 0.31 paisa spread, means which is the lowest ever in all municipal bonds. GSEC and if we compare our rate. So this is happen if the balance sheets is good. So, and how the bond is being success means personal commitment is being needed. We were not totally dependent on Arnab ji or our credit rating agency or merchant other agencies. We also were partnering them. They were also holding them. For Pimpri also, I know, sir, 3-4 years back it was going on. But why Pimpri succeeded? It was because of you, sir. So commitment is needed. So 10 times subscription. Recently in March 2024, 100 crore green bond we came up. It subscribed almost 15 times. Arnab ji's company was my merchant banker and 7.90 is the rate. Sir, definitely we are not getting any premium for this. But the SEBI has taken this step in abroad, in US and Europe. They have a special pool of funds for environment and climate related projects. Where we have the green certification, we get the funds at 2% or 1.5% below. Here it is not there. So it is the step towards which we, SEBI and we all are going for that. Funds are not needed by Pimpri also and not even Vadodara or Mumbai also. But to show the way to the cities, we have to take the lead. Although we are not much cash rich, but we are comfortably placed. So these are the benefits regarding pooled finance also. Sir, Gujarat is also coming with pooled finance and I am the member secretary of that. And before December, we would be coming with the pooled finances and all this thing. We also have alternative financing options. Apart from our own fund, we can monetize the land. We can develop the PPP projects. You were saying that housing projects nowadays, behind housing scheme is there, in front there commercial complexes are there where we are getting the premiums. Tertiary treatment, I said. So lots of other options are also there. CSR is also one of the, nowadays companies are forced to do CSR of some percentage of their profit. So all these things are there where we can go for this ultimately. We also have the options, but to refine ourselves, we have to go for the bonds. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Shilpa?
Yeah. It's been a fascinating discussion, and the advantage of going last is I can get to kind of talk a little bit about what happened earlier. And I'm just thinking about what an unprecedented time this is really for cities to rethink the future of cities and to also access India's capital markets in a very significant way. What we've been seeing when you look at policymakers and regulators, again, there's been unprecedented support for municipal bonds market. I think SEBI has taken a number of actions in recent times. The Finance Commission has actually incentivized for audited balance sheets from ULBs. Mahua has given actually incentives for cities to issue bonds. So there's just unprecedented support for this market. And I think Mr. Bhatia rightly pointed out that there is a deep liquid market that can actually rise up to meet this demand from ULBs. I think the other side of the equation, that what about the ULBs? And just hearing the two stories here, it's fascinating. I mean, for Pimpri Chinchwad to really increase the property tax, collection in such a significant way, or for Vadodara, to actually do 6 years of financial statements, bring it to current and current levels and audited levels. I think these are again, really large steps that ULBs are taken. I can only say that when I look back at capital markets, because I've spent some time there, most investors always reward the trust and transparency that gets built out of such measures. And as the trust grows from the investor side, the advantage to the borrower is that they can go back for larger pools of capital. They can go back for cheaper pools of capital as they become a trusted borrower with capital markets. And therefore, I think we're on the cusp of a very unique opportunity to really bring these two things together. I just lastly want to comment also about the point you made, Shekhar, about where's that green and blue global finance. And You're absolutely right. Data shows that just 10 to 15% of all that capital has flown to the global south. Also, just around 10 or 15% of that capital has actually flown to adaptation and resilience projects. So the flow is not yet a solid flow, it's very much a trickle. But one thought, just to leave behind is that, is there an opportunity for a platform to come up which can help, on the one hand, ULBs to meet the stringent conditionalities required of such capital? And is there then, pool of donors who can be on the other side? I think the advantage of doing this will be really, currently we talked about the fact that when there's a mission and there's funds, we tend to pick up those projects first. But I think going to a broader pool of capital, it could possibly allow ULBs the option to really look at their whole array of things to be done for the city, to do it on a forward-looking basis, come up with many different ideas, especially based off their climate action plan or climate budgeting, as the Mumbai ULB has started doing. And once you have that as a basis to then translate that idea into a funding request. But certainly, like Arnab pointed out, it's not so easy because you might do a lot of work to prepare the project plan and it might not get accepted. And therefore, again, is there an opportunity to really build more capacity to do this on maybe smaller feasibility studies or kind of a pre-report, which you can then sound out and see whether you're on the right path, save yourself some time, and then move into the actual financing process. The very last comment I want to make is, what are the different pools of capital that can help this? Because in the end, this whole business of making feasibility studies, making development project reports, all of this costs both time, effort, energy, and who will kind of fund this becomes the question. I think there are pools of capital also available for that. One pool of capital could be philanthropic capital, which supports organizations to really help ULBs do this. That's number one. Number two can be actually technical assistance from many different multilateral bodies or developmental finance institutions. And I think that once we are able to move towards actually developing a pilot of this kind, then just like the municipal bond idea will grow, I think even the access to global finance can grow quite dramatically. Thank you.
Thank you, Shilpa. I'll just open it up for our audience now. Please raise your hands if you have a question. A mic will travel to you. Also, in the interest of time, please be very brief, identify yourself, and just specify who you are asking the question to. Thank you.
My name is Vishwas Tendulkar. I'm a sociopreneur. I'm closely associated with the BMC and the Thane Municipal Corporation. My question is the climate-related finance is required by the ULBs in the wake of following facts? BMC budget is equal to Maharashtra state budget. Then number two is under the smart city in the year 2014, 100 smart cities were funded 100 crores. Climate was, I'm a smart city certified person, climate was one of the things. I don't see, there's no impact, visible impact. Second thing is the functioning of the ULB is with the standing committee, which is a politically influenced. Is the political influence is going to be a hindrance, which is going to be there because your structure is like that. Third thing, most important, anything which is more than crore, even for the Ministry of Corporate Affairs as the CSR professional, you need impact assessment. How we are going to make impact assessment report because the impact is not seen. So on this thing, I think there is enough on the governance side required to be done first before we go into. In the corporate world, governance is anyway inbuilt. It is inherent. In the ULB, which is not. So this is my submission.
Thank you. Who wants to take it?
I think I'll take it. I don't think that governance is not inbuilt in ULBs. It's a more complex stakeholder structure, which you don't have in corporation. So I would really request you to come and start seeing more of how the ULBs are working. So I don't agree with that. Mumbai budget is 1/10 of Maharashtra. It's not the same as Maharashtra. It's almost 1/10 of Maharashtra. Smart cities were given not 100 crores, they were given 1,000 crores. each smart city got 1,000 crore. There were a few projects which were implemented definitely from a sustainability standpoint. The major progress that has been made is in terms of the pedestrian walkways, the cycle tracks, which was an inherent part of the ABD project in smart cities, including in Pimpri-Chinchwad. Also, in addition, for example, we have air quality analyzers, STP analyzers, etc., etc. ULBs definitely need climate financing. It goes without saying. You need climate financing for n number of projects, and not just for adaptation projects, but projects which will end up creating a lesser carbon footprint, which will end up creating a lesser air pollution matrix, etc. So I think that broadly.
Right.
I would like to add to Shekhar sir. See, climate financing is a word, new. Taxonomies and new terminologies, words comes like that. Each project of ULB is a green project. It is related to whether it is a road, whether it is a footpath, garden, or anything. Earlier also we were doing it, but now awareness is being needed for that, how much we are spending towards the climate. And that's why this green bond and green finance framework, as I said, we had drafted the green finance framework. First time in India, in Asia actually, by any urban law. What it says? It says what is the current situation of the project, how much carbon emission is there or methane generation is there, and by implementing this project, what outcome would be there. Earlier these things were missing. Nowadays we are on that path. We are not fully achieved it, but we are on that path. In coming years, you would be seeing that the outcome also would be seen. Nowadays, thus just spending is going on and the bigger picture are being seen. But regarding environment and climate also, in coming years, you would be able to see that.
One last point, I think, which is, Amitabh, important to just point out. The kind of thing that you said about political buy-in, I think political buy-in is increasingly coming for climate change. Right from the topmost Honorable Prime Minister, right to my Nagar Sevak who is sitting in Pimpri-Chinchwad, they are realizing the importance. There are projects for which no one says a no. They would never say a no to a flood mitigation project for the slums which are situated right next to a river. They will never say no largely to an STP project which is very critical for you to maintain water quality in rivers. It's about creating a buy-in. It comes little slowly, but that's what democracy is for.
I mentioned interference, not a buy-in.
Please.
Hi. Thank you for the nice points that you mentioned, particularly Mr. Tiwari and Shekhar, the fantastic. So what I was asking is, there is a perception issue with municipalities when the bonds, particularly what Arnav was referring to, the neighborhoods investing in your bonds or the retail investor. The perception is the leakages of revenue. So would you suggest some specific points that you are taking care of in terms of changing this perception? And also in actual, like you said, the property tax, it has gone up just by assessment. You have increased it by 300 crores and it might go up to 1,500, 1,600 crores. It's fantastic. But how many of the municipalities are doing this? And is there a clear roadmap to reduce the leakages? Why I'm saying this is the perception drastically changed when DBT came in. And it has been one of the points that has been emphasized globally about India, that because of DBT, the leakage is reduced. So can something be done towards it, or is it being done? If you can throw some light on that.
Thank you. Can we just collect the questions from the back as well? In the interest of time, let's collect all the questions and then we can answer together.
Hi, my name is Abhijit Mishra. This is a question actually to Santosh Tiwari. Or also to Shekhar Singh. I'm a Mumbaikar since 1995. I never used to live in Bombay before 95. I have a huge respect for municipal corporations, so I'll come directly to the point. There's too much of corruption in municipalities. I know both of you are very senior. It might not be getting up to your level, but at the bottom of the pyramid, where you have to pay property tax, where you have to pay various kind of taxes, there's too much of corruption. So when we talk about climate-related problems, when we talk about investing in bonds, there's no buy-in from the local citizen. Now, I have a commercial property as well as a residential property in this city. So the question becomes even more, even if I want to dedicate myself and give it back to the society in Mumbai, if a climate-related bond comes in at some point in time, I'm very surprised that Vadodara and Pune or Pimpri are sitting in Mumbai and talking about the same, and there's no BMC representative here. So that was an oxymoron for me. But the question is that there's too much of corruption. And I don't know how does Arnab and how does Mr. Kotak handle this with the municipal corporations. So the question is corruption at the bottom of the pyramid, up to the middle level, to the senior level. And I can give examples, but I don't want to.
I will let Sekhar and Santosh ji reply on the municipal bit. On the capital market bit, for you and also for you, when suppose somebody comes to the market, right? You talked about leakages, you talked about corruption. The structure that has been drawn up is that how Kantakji will rate a particular municipality is based on the cash flow. It has got nothing to do with the other aspects of the municipality, right? Does it generate enough revenue? Does that revenue gets ring-fenced in an escrow? And does it have enough capacity to service a debt, which is in terms of, and there is a proper rainfall, waterfall mechanism, where every year, suppose it's a 5-year bond, every year 20% of the capital gets accumulated, so that at the end of 5 years there is no pressure on the municipality. One aspect which we are actually discussing with the rating agencies is that suppose it's a AA+, at the end of 3 years, you have actually accumulated almost 60% of your principal that you need to return, right? So your bond actually has become much more credible in sense. So is there any incentive that can be paid back to that? You can't change the rating of a bond in between. So to come to your answer, to question and your question, when somebody is looking to invest in that, he is investing on the instrument and the viability of the instrument. So the underlying factors which could be there are generally not looked at, as long as these things are ring-fenced properly and there is a proper recovery mechanism which is defined. Yeah, rest of it obviously is.
I think to your question, there is a long answer, there's a short answer. The short answer is that technology is what is going to bring the change. That is, yeah.
Using technology. They just keep a computer on the side and they're talking and they're exchanging.
No, it's not about that. It's not about that. For example, say property tax regime. Property tax regime.
I don't get a receipt on the same day.
No, that's what I'm telling you. For example, property tax regime, out of the about 6.5 lakh properties that I have now increased to about 8.4 lakh properties. Last year, 72% of them paid it online. A year before, it was only 40%. So that's the kind of jump that we are, just a second. Yeah, no, it's thanks to COVID also, but it's also thanks to the convenience that is being provided. In terms of even the property tax assessment, like, your income tax assessment, you self-assess. Now, there is a process to self-assess your own property tax as well. So, I can't say about Bombay, I'm saying about PCMC. Still, there is a lot of distance to be traveled. In terms of property transfer tax, the moment you buy a property, now we are directly connected to our IGR, and that property taxation comes directly to me. So that it's a very, very direct link. So that's why a short answer is technology, the way he mentioned about DBT, what we are doing with property taxation, we're drone mapping, and that is the single answer that I have. And that's how the process is.
So, in this, I would like to add, technology has dominated in last 5-6 years. Okay. Vadodara means Gujarat adopted carpet area system in 2003. 1/4/2003 is the date. And believe me, every year we are doing the assessment and my 100% properties are covered. So regarding self-tax assessment system, which sir is saying, it is available on website. It is mandatory. You enter your measurements, you select your area, you would be getting the tax, what tax you have to pay. If you are not satisfied, you can again raise the objection also. Regarding online payment, As I said, not only in COVID, since 2010-11, we are having online tax payment system, and on the spot receipt is being generated. So, sir, there is a continuous improvement and all these things. Regarding corruption, it is a very broad subject, but my one suggestion would be a patience. People don't want to wait. Please wait for 7 days. If there is a 7 days, please wait. People want same day only, and that is what they are being misused. So patience is there, technology is coming, and you would be seeing improvements, sir.
Thank you. I think we'll have to bring this discussion to end. Thank you so much. And the reason why BMC is not here is mainly because BMC till now has not had any experience to raise money from the markets. So they are flush with funds. They have their own money, right? So
Amitabh
that is
one thing. Amitabh ji, one thing I would like to say. As we and Pimpri has come up with private issues, we haven't gone for public issue because we don't want to deal with n number of investors. But the issue, when I had announced my issue, I had got n number of calls. Many of my citizens wants to participate in our bond issue. They want to invest. And same case would be in Women. Indore has done it. Indore has done it, and where they had got the applications from Kashmir and Assam also. So people are, the main reason is that right now we are not going for, because we have to form a separate task force for that. That's why we are going for private placement.
Thank you. I must thank each one of the participants here. Thank you for coming here and for this very informative discussion. And thank you each one of you for becoming part of this discussion and sparing your time in the evening. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
A big thank you to all of you. We extend our heartfelt thanks to all our esteemed panelists, the guests, and all of you audience who heard patiently, raised the right question, and made the discussion a lot more interesting. We would now invite you to join for a high tea session. Thank you.